the greatest game of all time can also be called the greatest game ever made. And though there are definitely many games that are contenders for the title of the greatest game of all time or the greatest game ever made, there's one title in particular that I've seen over the years that gets so much praise from people and is often labeled by these same people as the greatest game of all time. And if you don't know which game I'm talking about, that's kind of sad, but you probably know the game, or you've at least heard of it and have an idea of what the game is like. I'm talking about The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Now, whether you played it on the original Nintendo 64 version or on the GameCube, or bought it from the Virtual Console on the Nintendo Wii, or perhaps you even went ahead and bought it for your Nintendo 3DS now that the Nintendo 3DS is finally picking up, well, it doesn't really matter where you bought it or where you played it. You probably enjoyed the game, and if you didn't, that's fine. However, I think that people who claim that this is the greatest game of all time, I feel that that's where they're stretching the truth. I mean, everybody has the right to their opinion, and I'm just stating mine in this video. But I think that calling Ocarina of Time the greatest game of all time or the greatest game ever made is a bit of a stretch. How so? I'll tell you how so. To start off, the story of the game. Ocarina of Time doesn't have the greatest story ever. I mean, it's basically the classic hero saves world, kingdom, and princess, and that's about it. There's someone trying to take over the world, and he has to defend it, and basically that's the plot of the game. It has its magic elements. You have the hero who has some skill at combat and stuff of that sort, other protagonists that help him out, and that's fine. However, it feels too bland, the story. I mean, it's just your basic story that Nintendo has used with other franchises, such as the Super Mario Brothers franchise. I mean, Mario goes out to save Peach. Link goes out to save Zelda and the kingdom. And that's basically it. There's not much to the story, so I really don't know why this story is considered one of the greatest of all time, when it really doesn't seem like it is. Maybe the story wasn't all that great because of the limitations of the Nintendo 64. I really don't know, but I mean, I don't really consider it to be one of the greatest plots or stories of all time. Then you have the characters that make up the plot. You have Link, the silent protagonist that never talks unless he gets hit by something or burned, or he jumps and he grunts, and that's basically it. And I mean, that's how they wanted the character in the first place, so that's fine. However, you have Zelda, who's basically a generic princess in this game, and Ganondorf, the generic villain who wants to take over the world, and other characters like Impa, who are just there to protect the princess, and that's basically it. That's all they serve for. You have Navi the fairy, who gives advice to Link as you're playing into the game, and that's all Navi does. And I mean, maybe you don't need anything more than that to make a great game. I mean, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you just need some very basic elements, but I don't think that the greatest game of all time should be so basic and so simple. And I mean, you have the gameplay of the game itself, and it's a free-roaming game. You go around walking in Hyrule Field, or in Zelda's castle, or at the temples, or at Zora's River, wherever you feel like it. And I mean, you can go and just enjoy the sights of the game while you're playing it on the Nintendo 64 or on the 3DS or anything else. And I mean, the game is beautiful, that's for sure, but it's not about the sights, it's about the gameplay. I mean, you can walk around and see everything, but when it comes down to the gameplay itself, it's really not all that fantastic. How so? It's not so fantastic in the sense that, I mean, when you're in combat, you're facing an enemy, and say you're facing a Skulltula. They come down from the ceiling, they turn around, you strike them once, and that's it. You defeat the enemy, you get hearts or rupees or, nuts, and that's it. I mean, you're fighting an enemy with a shield. When the enemy's blocking, you target him with L or with Z if you're playing on the Nintendo 64. When he's blocking with his shield, you don't strike because your hit will just bounce off. When he strikes at you, you use your shield by pressing R on the Nintendo 3DS. You block and then you strike. And then you do this repeatedly with enemies, and that's how you win. I mean, sometimes you have variation in enemies, like when you face the King Dodongo and you throw bombs in his mouth to defeat him, and I mean, that's a nice change of pace. But for the most part, that's what makes up the gameplay of the game in itself. You're just walking and blocking an attack, or shooting arrows, or striking with your sword, and that's basically all you're doing. There isn't much to it, and I honestly it would expect the greatest game of all time, or the greatest game ever made, to have more variety in its gameplay. I mean, once again, maybe the Nintendo 64 didn't allow for greater gameplay variety, and that's fine. But I mean, we're in an era in which technology is advanced, and if these same people keep calling the game the greatest game of all time, it should be better. I mean, it doesn't stand up to newer games, to some of them. I mean, there are some that are certainly crappy, but there are many games in the current 7th generation of consoles that are definitely, in my opinion, better than Ocarina of Time. Now, I'm not going to go out of my way to name any for the sake of not starting a flame war, in case I already have. I mean, you can disagree with me or disagree with me, and that's fine, but these are basically the reasons why I think that The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is a bit overrated in the sense of calling it the greatest game of all time. And well, that's basically it for this video. I am your YouTube channel host, Juanito Shit, and thank you for watching, and let me know below whether you agree or disagree with me, and I'm fine. We can talk about it, we can debate it, you know, I'm cool with that. Either way though, thank you for watching.